You know what I mean? Because I'm just realizing all the stuff that we've said. We're literally a Facebook page with 2,200 likes, and we're acting like we're going to change the country. You know what I mean?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chatter, a podcast from The Gist. On today's show we're talking to Matthew Fulton and Scott Moore from Progressive Politics Northern Ireland. Now, they founded the movement in the wake of the RHI scandal to help promote more progressive ideals in Northern Ireland. We had a really interesting chat and a really fun talk about sort of the state of Northern Irish politics and their goals for Progressive Politics Northern Ireland. Before we get started, a couple of quick plugs. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to us on Facebook, Twitter, and wherever you get your podcasts. Sponsor for today's show is Beer 52. They're the UK's largest craft beer club, and they deliver a monthly selection of craft beers from around the world, along with a copy of their magazine Ferment. They are expertly selected, small batch beers that are delivered right to your door. And if you follow the link in the description, you can get £10 off your first order. So if you want to get quality craft beers delivered right to your door, follow the link in the description and get £10 off your first order with Beer 52. In the description, you'll also find links to enter to win a £500 Amazon voucher and start earning money from giving your opinions with YouGov. So that's enough from me. Let's get on with the interview. So welcome to the show, guys.
All right, hello.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, nice to have you here.
Yes,
Say
indeed.
here. It's not like we have a specific space that we always record in, but
Or cyberspace.
yeah, cyberspace. So
Cyberspace.
I was wanting to talk about progressive politics in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
About, your goals and sort of where you want to go and where you see Northern Ireland going in terms of political direction and
World domination.
Are we all doomed? Or
Shall I take this or shall you take this?
Well, I'll say like obviously the page was set up, or the Facebook and Twitter pages were set up earlier in January, earlier this year. It sort of came
January 15th, I checked.
January 15th, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a Saturday or Sunday. I think that's a Saturday.
Oh, I could actually check now. I'll tell you.
I'm not sure the day of the week is.
I don't have an exact time, but
I do remember the Sunday I was doing it because it was just it came from.
it was Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, it's Sunday because like it sort of came from the ashes of the RHI thing.
Yeah.
You know, obviously.
That's
choice words.
Obviously, like I meant that on purpose, pun intended. But no, like it's something I know I've been thinking about it for a while. I know Scott's obviously been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah.
And this is why I approached Scott and about coming together and working on something. Just because Northern Ireland needs a movement like this. You've seen things like, for me anyway, I don't know of Scott, but for me, he's seeing things like the Bernie Sanders movement in America, and the Jeremy Corbyn thing.
I think there's a lot of different movements, and for me personally, there's movements where I agree with some aspects of them, but I disagree with others. But through them all, I still respect their ability to, inspire people and bring people together behind a cause, which is, by anybody's measure, far better than the status quo. And for people might find this contentious, but for me, I would apply that to people ranging from Jeremy Corbyn to Emmanuel Macron, because, for me personally, right, that's
not exactly a wide spectrum.
What? Jeremy Corbyn to Emmanuel Macron?
Yeah, if you're talking on the political spectrum, if you say extreme right is 1 and extreme left is 10, you're talking between about 5 and 8.
But you have to understand as well is that a lot of my friends are really, really, really left wing, and they're kind of mad about Jeremy Corbyn, but they despise Macron because he's a neoliberal. They say he's a neoliberal, right? Yeah, centrist, a radical centrist, bloody centrist, right?
And he's an ex-banker.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
All right. Well, but what I would argue to you, right? But obviously this reflects my own feelings, right? Because I am both a social democrat and I am very, very pro-European. I believe that Europe would be better off as a federal system similar to the US, rather than being 50 or so nation states, right? I don't believe that nationalism is a good way to build societies. You know what I mean? And I think if you look at Northern Ireland, it's pretty evident it has been a failure. So why are we still looking to nationalism as a basis for our communities and our societies? That's what I'm sort of asking. So whenever I see, I wouldn't say I support Jeremy Corbyn, right? Just to clear that up, right? But what I would say is I respect some things that he's been coming out at the recent election, because he's been talking about nationalising natural monopolies. I don't think it's that controversial to nationalise the real services. I don't think it's that controversial to nationalise things like energy or utilities or telecoms. I don't think, or even the national grid. You know what I mean? I don't see it as controversial. But yet he's portrayed as, a Marxist. But Marxism goes far, far further than that. And I can't not respect a social democratic platform as a social democrat. There's other aspects of Jeremy Corbyn that would be far too nuanced for me to go into in detail in such a podcast. But I wouldn't disagree.
For, man. Come on, lay it out for us. What do you disagree with?
No. See, I'll to be honest with you, I'm not equipped sufficiently with the nuance. I would just bury myself. Don't bang. I'm going to tell you right. I'm going to tell you right. Because the listeners can't see this, right? Matthew has just wrote on his phone notes, "Don't bang the table," and showed it to me, because apparently that messes with the sound, right? So I'm just going to keep that in mind, right?
I've done podcasts before, so
I would prefer that my partners in this podcast were a bit more honest with me instead of showing me notes on their phone, right?
I thought I would not bring this up for the listener to hear.
No, you can always talk to me, Matthew. You can always talk to me, right?
Don't bang the table.
But anyway, I love social democracy and I love Europe. Why can't I like Corbyn's social democratic platform without liking Corbyn, while also liking the fact that Macron likes the EU? Why not? Why can't I do that?
This sort of illustrates one of the reasons that I thought bringing a group like Progressive Politics to people in this country was important, because the fighting within the left, or anyone from the centre to the left, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because Scott obviously has certain opinions I don't agree with, and vice versa.
Definitely.
Or I'm a big Jeremy Corbyn fan, democratic socialist, etc. He would definitely not align with specifically that way of thinking. But
it comes down to what's at stake if we keep fighting.
We have enough in common to come together and fight what the sort of people, parties, politicians that definitely have very little in common with us and the way we want our country to go. And so I thought it was important. It's a movement to try and bring people together, because stop arguing about silly little things that may not matter or don't matter right now, but they may matter in the future. But let's try and move everything forward towards to the point where that is an actual thing we have to argue about, that matters, To
me, it's about issues like abortion here is still very heavily restricted. Same-sex couples don't have equal marriage. Our society is still divided deeply along sectarian lines. Our politics is prone to crisis and meltdown. Irish and other minority languages aren't protected. Infrastructure is poor, especially in the West. Despite our problems, we still face underinvestment and austerity, and religion, has an improper role in our politics and education, because you've got a situation where not all religious beliefs in this country are treated equally before the law, and they should be. And whenever you look at all the issues where we are so much more behind the rest of the Western world, the rest of these islands, whenever you actually look at that and take stock of it, it just to me demonstrates an overwhelming imperative for a single sort of cohesive political movement, not necessarily a political party, because we've seen how NI21 has went. It failed. You know what I mean? What Northern Ireland needs right now isn't a new political party, but a new way of doing politics that reflects how it's being done elsewhere. Not in terms of rigid party structures, but in terms of grassroots mass movements. And I'm not trying to be like pie in the sky or overly ambitious or anything like that, but but I do think that it's worthwhile having a sort of like grand vision to work towards, even if in the end up you don't reach it. And for me personally, like, we have plenty to fight for. Why not mobilize people and fight for it?
Exactly.
That's
I want to break down a couple of things that you said there before we go into your grand vision.
Well, I don't have much of a grand vision to tell, but go on.
So, I'm all for making sure we get, more available abortion, gay marriage, the end to austerity.
Yeah.
I would point out that the Conservatives have said that they are going to push for abortion to be made more available, for gay marriage to be legal. And per person, we get more money than anywhere else in the UK. We get nearly £11,000 per head compared to the UK average of 9,000.
But we still get less.
Can claim that, and we also get a lot more money than we send to Westminster. So, whilst I agree with you about fighting austerity, that's not really a Northern Ireland specific.
Well, think about what we're going to lose with Brexit, though.
Yeah,
like, the peace money's not coming from the Tories.
No, I know.
Yeah, but what I would say is, if you look at what we're getting now, and you compare it to what we had before the Conservatives came to power, you know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about whenever I'm talking about austerity. And furthermore, like, it's not appropriate to treat Northern Ireland like any other part of these islands, because unlike the rest of these islands, we are a deeply divided society. That needs to be taken into account. The structural challenges need to be addressed, which to date they haven't. And it can't be, it's not something that you can brush off. It's not like you can't impose austerity here the same way you can in the rest of these islands. If it were up to me, there wouldn't be any austerity at all. Not while there are still people, in poverty, and in need.
So where does the spending come from in your mind? Where's the money come from?
Well,
not that I disagree with you. I think austerity is completely pointless, but. In your mind, as progressive politics in Northern Ireland or as individuals, where do you get that spending from? Where do we cut? Do we borrow? Do we spend money differently?
Firstly, what I would say is I'm going to put on my progressive politics NI hat, right? We do have a good bit in our progressive charter about this. First and foremost, we don't have any issues with borrowing for infrastructure, because I think that's a pretty good and reasonable investment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's certainly one that we need, particularly for the West. Secondly, we support lifting the rates cap as well. There's currently, for those that don't know, if you have a house over a certain value, the rates that you have to pay in that are capped. Right, so if you have a house that's like worth $300,000 or whatever the capped amount is, then you pay the same amount of rates as somebody whose house is worth £5 million. You know what I mean? I don't know the exact figures in this, so I'm probably wrong. But to me, the more valuable your house is, the more rates you should pay on it, and those rates should be put into local public services. There shouldn't be a cut-off where you pay the same rates as somebody who's earning less than you, because to me that's regressive, right? So that's just a couple of the policies that we're talking about in the Progressive Charter. For those who are interested, they can look it up. It's available on our website under the About section, progpoliticsni.com. For me personally, right, taking off my Progressive Politics NI hat and putting on my myself hat, I would look to what Jeremy Corbyn has proposed, because he has basically, whenever he was setting out all the stuff that he wants to nationalise and all the austerity that he wants to reverse, he basically pointed to a tax rise for the most wealthy 5%. And to me, I don't know the exact details of it, but I do remember seeing it, and to me that is the most equitable solution, because to me it is the richest.
Was it not 15%?
Well,
the 85% at the bottom, we're not going to face a tax rise.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the exact figures. You may well be right, but for me, the richest in our society must shoulder the burden of poverty. You know what I mean? It must shoulder the burden of people being less well off to the point where they can't meet their basic needs. You know what I mean? And to me, I would think that's pretty straightforward. You know what I mean? But not a lot of people see it that way, unfortunately.
To sort of mentioned the rates cap.
Yeah.
In November
Yeah.
there was a proposal that was put forward and announced that it's a £400,000 domestic rate cap that was going to be removed. So once the Assembly's back up and running, we may well see that actually put into practice.
So they're going to lift the rates cap?
Well, they announced it in November, and then obviously January came and everything fell apart. So.
Well, they might use that as a sort of easy out, because for me, like from what I've like sort of seen personally, we know that the SDLP and landlords, they get on rather well in terms of their councillors and elected reps and former elected reps being landlords. I'm not sure how much different it would be for the DUP. Now, obviously, I hold my hands up and I say I may well be wrong about that. I don't disclaimer, I don't want anybody suing me. So I'm not making any definitive statements here. But if you ask me, do I think there are landlords in the DUP? My guess would be yes. There's probably some quantity of landlords in the DUP, and to the point. I'm being made to be too careful here, but basically my point is my fear would be
libel case on your desk.
Yeah, my fear would be that without pointing fingers, say I would believe that vested interests would be at play, because they have been at play, in Northern Ireland politics historically. That is what we have come to expect as citizens in this jurisdiction, and I would expect that they would be using RHI as a sort of and the whole scandal that's ensued over these many months as a sort of cover for it, so they can just forget about it if things do come back together. That's my view.
Well, the DUP really are their party of big business. They cut corporation tax.
Yes.
Sort of.
I didn't agree with that.
Your suggestions maybe aren't unfounded, but I'd like to see figures on that before I would make. Accusations.
At the end of it, I didn't really make an accusation, because at the end of the day, if you don't have facts and statistics behind it, you can't make an accusation. Indeed, if you went away and you found such facts and statistics, then you may well be able to.
I think Donald Trump's Twitter feed would probably disagree with you there, but
who needs facts?
Exactly. Talking
alternative facts.
The breakdown at Stormont.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of it? Like, where are we at? Where are we going?
Well, if you ask me, right, I think the problems that we've seen over the years with the institutions at Stormont have been down to the fact that the Good Friday Agreement was hashed out in a closed room between the main political leaders. There wasn't any deliberation between main political parties and the public, and as a result, whenever
the public voted for it.
The public voted for it, but they didn't have a chance to say, actually, we want this changed and that changed and this changed. If it were up to me, we would have had a deliberative process. So the main political parties would have had their say, and then the public would have been able to visit the Good Friday Agreement and look through it and examine it, and basically take out the parts they didn't like and put in parts that they would want. You know what I mean? So a deliberative process, and a good way of doing that.
Do you really think that was a realistic?
No, but a good way of doing that
would divided society.
But a good way of doing that would have been a citizens' assembly. But the thing about it is, it's not it's fundamentally it isn't.
Surely you need that in a divided situation like that. You need the change to come. It doesn't just come from the bottom down or the bottom up. It comes from the top down, where people see that maybe they're not the enemy, they're working together, and then the wounds can start to heal. Surely it's which is also why we haven't had Stormont come back together, is because neither side wants to give in to the other.
Yeah, but fundamentally,
and that's why nothing gets done, is because they're all scared of things getting leaked out in meetings and going, oh, they're working with the other side, and then they're viewed as not as hardline. They lose seats to maybe someone who's a bit more extreme. Maybe in the DUP's terms, they lose seats to the TUV or the PUP.
But fundamentally, our deeply divided politics arises from our deeply divided society, and society, I don't think it's too controversial to say society is made up of individuals. So if we refer the Good Friday Agreement to individuals as selected and put into a citizens' assembly, and we deliberate on it that way, as should have been done in the first place. I know a citizens' assembly around that time would have been a bit of a radical concept, but I don't believe that the role of the public should have been restricted to saying yes or no in the agreement. I believe they should have had some say in the content of the agreement. Now, obviously, we don't have a time machine. It's done and dusted now. We can't go back and press for some rule to make it more of a deliberative process. But what we can do is we can say enough is enough. We've had enough of all the farces of our politics since the Good Friday Agreement. We need to revisit the Good Friday Agreement and put things right. I'm not saying start from scratch.
St Andrews was supposed.
No. Well, but the public weren't involved in that. No, like if you let me get to what I'm saying, I believe that given the current political impasse, we should, how many deadlines have the main Northern Ireland political parties missed now? How many deadlines have the DUP and Sinn Féin missed now? Has it been 2 or 3?
There's no electoral consequence.
What?
There's no electoral.
No, I don't know, but I'm just asking you, how many deadlines have they missed?
Well, I agree, but there's no electoral consequence.
Yeah, I know they haven't. I know there isn't. But how many deadlines have they missed?
At least half a dozen.
Yeah, 6 deadlines.
Just this year.
Well, six deadlines since RHI say.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 deadlines, right? So
deadlines, inverted commas.
I don't know if that's an accurate figure, right? But if the main Northern Ireland political parties have missed 6 deadlines, is it not time to give a citizens' assembly a chance, where we take a polling company and we say to them, please select 100 citizens that reflect the demographic makeup of Northern Ireland at random, and then we put to those citizens key questions regarding political reform and the legacy issues and flags parading in the past and contentious issues and anything else and we put the findings of that citizens' assembly to referenda, as has been done in the Republic, and we work it out that way. You know what I mean? Because for me, the principle of consent has to mean that the people of Northern Ireland are listened to, and in a direct fashion and in a deliberative fashion. Because for me, if you want to ask my view, I think conventional representative democracy has failed in Northern Ireland, and we need a more deliberative approach.
I don't know if I would say we're a conventional representative democracy. Technically, we've got the most representative democracy in the United Kingdom and one of the most representative democracies in the world, just with PRSTV.
Whenever I say conventional representative democracy, I mean a democracy where voters elect their politicians, and that is sort of the peak of their democratic engagement. They let the politicians handle everything else. I don't believe in that. I believe that we need to forge a political system where ordinary people can play a role in a deliberative fashion in their politics, and not just a representative one where they vote for a politician maybe once, or in our case 3 times a year. You know what I mean? And just let that be done with it. You know what I mean?
Been once this year.
I'm a very, very if you Google Peter Osborne did an article, right? They did this event. I was talking to Niall Bakewell about it. They did this event, and the event was like a workshop, and at the end, it was all about different forms of governing Northern Ireland, right? And so one of the forms was technocracy, which was ruled by civil servants. Another form was...
That's pretty much what we have, really. Hey?
Yeah, and another form was basically the Good Friday Agreement, the Assembly, which is representative democracy. And then another form was what do you call it? Assembly plus deliberative democracy, with a deliberative element. And the idea of Assembly plus is, say the Assembly were working normally and there were issues that the Assembly couldn't decide. So if the Assembly couldn't decide on certain issues, then the issues would be referred off to I don't know if you could call it a citizens' assembly, but it would in effect be that. And then the results would come back, and because the findings are the product of a citizens' assembly, then the politicians aren't in a place to go against the democratic will of the people as expressed by that. So they have to then kind of accept it. I know it kind of falls apart because Jim Wells and the like say, well, no, we can't have equal marriage at any cost, even though if such an assembly had to deal with equal marriage, then they would say yes, pass equal marriage. You know what I mean? But I think a broadly deliberative system would be far better than the status quo. And at this moment in time, in particular, we need it to fix our institutions.
Okay, so in theory, I'm all for a citizens' assembly, but like in practice, I have a couple of like who gives the power to said citizens' assembly?
The British and Irish governments.
Okay, right. So how do you get them to agree that the institutions that they have put together are not functioning correctly? Because what evidence have they now got that they haven't had for the past 9 months, for the past fucking 10 years, that this government can't work? Like, what has changed now?
Well, maybe it's a matter of them holding their hands up and saying, look, we admit it, we got it wrong, this is went on far enough.
How many governments have you seen that will do that?
Well, we make them do that.
No, but
we need to make them do that.
That's all well and
That's
good.
sort of the practical challenge. I know it might not happen, but it's like, ideally, that's what should happen.
I would also argue that in a society where we're very, very split in terms of Protestant, Catholic, or nationalist, unionist, that a citizens' assembly won't solve any issues.
I'm not talking about solving the border question with it.
Well, no. Don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. With the citizens' assembly, there'd be fights. But
what do you want me to tell you? Send in bodyguards?
Maybe.
Send in bouncers?
Maybe everyone needs to, have a good punch up and a beer, and then it'll all be fine at the end.
Yeah. Go to the Winchester, have a pint, and wait till the whole thing blows over. That sounds too passive.
Basically, like Stormont needs
a kick up the arse.
Yeah,
kick up the hole.
They've been given all these deadlines. Only the deadlines mean nothing, and the public know they mean nothing. Something needs to be done. Where then, here's your new deadline, but you don't make it. It's not like we move on to the next deadline. This is what happens next. And I would be very surprised if they don't come to agreement on all the main issues. If they feel like the power's been taken away.
I would implore you to do two things. Would be to start a change.org petition, and then do absolutely everything in your power to call James Brokenshire's office off the fucking line until he literally either responds or unplugs his phone. Just to put the idea to him. Because
about a citizens' assembly.
Yeah, no. Honestly, I would suggest that you go and you get a change.org petition or something like that.
So you got to do that first. You can't do
it. We've got something in the works.
Okay,
keep an eye out.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye. We'll post on our page. Link in the description
lovely.
If you get it.
Collaboration.
Yeah, but sort of moving on then to your sort of opposition of the DUP at the ballot box. I kind of was interested to ask why you thought that was the best tactic rather than, the more that these deadlines get missed and the more sort of government doesn't work here, people are apathetic towards
and people
DUP.
are still voting DUP.
Yeah, people are still voting DUP, but our turnout in the Assembly election was only 64%, and that was the highest it had been in like a decade. So why is targeting DUP voters better than get out the vote?
Alright, there's some that I kind of need to clear up, and that is that progressive politics isn't ran by like politicians. It's not ran by like slick press officers. It's not ran by like experts or professionals or anybody like that.
People don't like experts these days.
No, it's ran by me and Matt. Matt set it up and he brought me aboard to help out with it. And I'm as it turns out, I'm really interested in politics. I really want to get involved in political activism and so on. I do want to be transparent about that. I'm not gonna beat around the bush and tell people, oh no, I'm not interested in politics or anything like that, and then just go on oh no, look, I've fallen into doing all these campaigns. I don't want to do that. I want to be transparent, right? I'm 19 years old. I'm moving into university, in less than a week. Today, what day is today?
It is the
Tuesday.
I'm 12th.
I'm moving into university on Sunday. Matthew brought me aboard whenever I was still in sixth form on the strength of my enthusiasm and interest and knowledge for politics. You know what I mean? Yeah, and previous stuff that I worked on. Matthew's just been blogging. Like, what all have you been doing, Matthew? Because I've never got this like sort of nailed down.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. Like obviously,
you made that Buy the Ticket Take the Right blog, or what?
Yeah. Like I ran a blog for a while, and got a bit of interest, and I've sort of moved away from that because I just thought about getting into something more local.
Yeah.
With this, and it's sort of if I wanted to write blogs that I actually had respect for, I'd have to give them more time than I was able to.
Yeah.
But like I have a full-time job, I have a family.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing that I can't do by
What's
myself.
your job?
I haven't saying this.
No, alright, no, that's right.
But it doesn't matter. Like as you said, we're just normal people.
Well,
like, we don't have a background in politics except that we're interested in politics and that we want to be more involved as in gathering people up. To get back to your question.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, well,
DUP, what I think is a common misconception with people with DUP voters is that they're all bigots or something like that.
No, yeah, they're not.
But we know they're not.
No, I'm not saying they're bigots.
No,
I
know.
stuck in their ways.
Yes,
not all of them.
But if you look at it, like you'll see, like I've seen lots of Q&As with them and things. It's usually, of course, gay people should be allowed to get married. No, that's fine, and things like that. It's not like they agree with their main policy points. It's like, but we have to keep Sinn Féin out. They're murderers, etc. That's what they might say. Like, so it's not that they're opposing the other side, but it's not like, oh yeah, of course I have Catholic friends. Don't be silly. Like I don't hate Catholics. It's just I hate the ones in government. So we're trying to not only, for me, progressive politics is not only reaching out, well, one main part of it is reaching out to people that don't vote. If you look at, that's a thing we ran earlier in the year, is so many people don't vote because they think there's no point.
There is a point.
Exactly.
So this goes to my question, why?
Yeah, so
why not get out?
That's what I was kind of getting to. The reason I was talking about me and Matt and what our backgrounds are is to make the point that this isn't this doesn't originate from a professional operation. Obviously, we're trying to do this as well as we can. So obviously, we do want to make a good impression and we do want to be as professional as possible. But people have to understand that this is a learning curve for both of us. We haven't always got everything right that we've done. We haven't always got all of our stances right. We've had to continually learn and figure out what the best thing to do is, basically. And as part of that, like early on, we decided to take the stance that that progressive meant Alliance, Greens, and People Before Profit, and not progressive meant DUP, TUV, UKIP, and Tories, right? And for not progressive, that's fair enough. But like we quickly found that by taking that stance with by supporting explicitly Alliance and Greens and People Before Profit, we found that we were excluding progressive individuals from other parties who, in my view, were genuinely progressive and shouldn't have been excluded. So Whenever that came to light, whenever we realised that we were talking in the election about voting Alliance, Greens, and People Before Profit, but whenever I realised that, me and Matt decided that wasn't the way we're going to do things anymore. You know what I mean? Because we do want to reach out to people in, for example, the SDLP, the UUP, Sinn Féin, and other parties as well. And fundamentally, it's about reaching out to individuals. It's not about doing any it's not about forging cross-party pacts. It's about individuals and it's about grassroots, and that sort of brings me to the whole thing that you're asking me about the DUP, right? I think we hold a certain set of core values that we have been honing over time, and we have a certain set of policies as well, which are kind of built around those core values, which sort of arise from those core values, and. Whenever you look at these core values and line them up with the likes of the DUP and the TV and UKIP and the Tories, they are just pretty much the opposite on most, if not all, areas. And because of that, we were kind of a disposition that was kind of all right to shout from the rooftops, to inform people that the DUP, we need to oppose them. You know what I mean? We need to vote against them. Now, I don't think that there's an issue with doing that at election time, because I think I don't think there's anything wrong with advising people how to vote. I'm not gonna go arrive at your house with a gun to your head and say, vote for this guy or I'm gonna shoot you. I'm not gonna do that. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna tell you, look, there's gay people and LGBT people that can't get married. There's women. There's people that are having to go to England to get abortions. There's there's people suffering because the DUP and others have received votes and won seats and got into government. There's people suffering because of that, quite a lot, I'd say. And I think it would be better for all of us if we just didn't vote DUP or for the TUV or UKIP or Tories for that matter. You know what I mean? Now, I think it's fair enough to say at election time, because part of being a political campaigning organisation is, for us anyway, advising people how to vote. That's kind of what we want to do. That's how we choose to work towards our objectives, because we believe that the best way to make change in society is through politics and through electoral politics and party politics. But I do admit that whenever it came to like shouting from the rooftops about the DUP all year round, basically outside of election time, and basically being negative about it, I think in hindsight, and given what the feedback we've been getting from people, and given what Matthew and others have been telling me, I think we got it wrong. You know what I mean? Because people, whenever people think of progressive politics, they want something to fight for, not something to fight against. You know what I mean? And that's what it always has to come down to. And that's what people have been repeatedly coming back and telling me. They have got the impression that we want to fight the DUP because fighting the DUP is an end in itself. And I don't think that at all. I think that fighting the DUP is an end, is a means to an end. As a means to, fighting the DUP at the ballot box could mean, LGBT liberation. It could mean more rights for women and people who can get pregnant. It means, it means an Irish Language Act, parity of esteem for Irish speakers. It means, proper investment in our infrastructure, and not just investment in marginal constituencies where the DUP are at risk of losing a seat. You know what I mean? It means, and that's what it's all about for me. And we shouldn't have gave the impression that we just took a notion that we didn't like the DUP and just opposed them for that reason.
We definitely, I think it's wrong to suggest that we just are that sort of organisation that...
we've given the wrong impression, but we're working away from that.
We have, during the March election, we did put out messages about getting more people involved that weren't registered from before.
See, that's honestly the avenue I would be going down if I were yourselves, because... So I can't find the 2015 Northern Irish turnout for the general election, but in 2015 it was 58%. Mm-hmm. The Assembly election was 64% turnout in March. So, and the DUP vote in the Westminster elections 2017 there was 36%.
Yeah.
So the exact same, roughly, amount of people didn't vote in the March Assembly elections as voted DUP in the Westminster elections.
Yeah.
So I would question why you felt that targeting DUP voters and trying to convince them otherwise was a better use of your resources than trying to convince people who haven't voted before.
I don't think we did. I think when the March election, when you saw registration for the vote was open, did push. And you can look back and see our infographics. We did push saying, look at all these people that don't vote. You should be encouraging, talking to family, friends, members, people who you work with. Encourage them to register to vote.
Yeah.
It's just after deadline passes, you can't vote. So you sort of have to shift your focus at a certain point.
A lot of people are registered that don't vote as well. Well, not a lot, but there is a proportion of people.
The thing that's kind of on my mind as well is I don't think that we should be negative and that we should, engage in the politics of negativity. I think that our politics has to be about positivity and what we can win if we work together and we vote a certain way. And, part of that is obviously advising people how to vote. We accept that, right? But, I do stand by the approach we take whenever it is election time. And when we do have to advise people how to vote, I do stand by that, because for me, obviously, of course I want to see more people voting. Of course I want to see people who aren't voting at the minute voting. I would be sympathetic to a system similar to Australia's where voting is compulsory, although I would want to see a none of the above option added to the ballot. So if people didn't see a candidate they liked, they could cross that, and the election, if that got enough, the election could be held again, but with new candidates. That's something I'd like to see. But for the time being, of course I want to see more people voting who haven't voted before. But at the same time, we do need to be pragmatic about it, because if we can win a DUP voter over from voting DUP to voting for a broadly progressive party that isn't the DUP, then that means that not only have we taken a vote off the DUP, we have added a vote onto the broadly progressive parties. You know what I mean? So we have basically dealt double damage there. You know what I mean? So that's the argument I would put to you.
That's it. We'll have to do that as well as get out the vote. No, again, I definitely think that's part of it, because every year you're having new people that are able to vote. New people added to the wide field, and they're going to be more likely to not be as bogged down by the history of this country as people who are much older than them. So in my view, we're probably getting more progressive, open-minded people added to the field every year. So I think it's very important to be getting out the vote.
Something that the Conservatives are seriously worried about.
Of course it is. Young people.
I can't remember who it was. The quote escapes me, but they were talking about how their voters are dying off at 2% a year. And all the new voters coming in, they're 70% Labour.
It's going to happen here.
Is it Lord Heseltine?
But I always find that a bit contentious whenever people talk about, the Conservative voters are all dying off, or the Leave voters are all dying off, or the pro-union voters in Scotland, they're all dying off. I just, there's negative politics.
Statistics say.
I know it's statistics, but to dwell on it, there's negative politics, and then there's just, it's.
I wasn't saying that was a smart suggestion.
No, I don't think it's.
I think it's indicative of the fear that they have that they're losing younger generations. Probably that the DUP should be concerned about as well.
But for me personally, nobody should be banking on the voters of a party dying in order to, I'm being deadly serious here. Nobody should be banking. Like Labour supporters should not be banking on Tory voters dying for Jeremy Corbyn to become Prime Minister, for example.
I don't think they are.
No, well, that's good. But, it shouldn't even cross people's minds, because, at the end of the day, it is distasteful to talk about people like that, because, that's somebody's granny or granda, you know what I mean?
It is.
That's it.
You're also talking about the vision of a more utopian future, though, so that's not a bad thing to be thinking about.
Yeah,
but I do take your point. It is.
Yeah.
You're always talking about someone's grandmother or someone's.
It's just it's a different way of wording it. It's not like you want people to die, but the political landscape is changing. People that maybe hold in our country more argumentative, like I don't like the other side views. They're going to be moving on. They're not like that. Political landscape is changing, where like you get younger people are more diverse. They're mixing more with people from different backgrounds, and not just Protestants or Catholic. They're mixing with different races, different types of cultures, different nationalities, because the country is more open than it's ever been.
Non-religious people are more visible.
Exactly, and that's it. So I think it's just with time, the political landscape is changing, and I think hopefully for the positive and more progressive.
I think that there is such a thing as a center of gravity in politics, in terms of like the average age and how that determines attitude. And call me biased, but I would like to see the center of gravity in our politics and in politics elsewhere, like like certainly down south in Britain, I would certainly like to see the centre of gravity reside somewhere much younger, because you know what I mean.
You do have a lot of old politicians leading a lot of countries.
Yeah, well, what I would say is, I suppose it's not so bad sometimes, because Bernie's old and he's not so
So
bad.
I was about to say, I'm the two
Yeah.
people that I wanted to win the
Yeah.
US and UK elections are
old.
both,
Yeah.
are both older than the current inhabitants of the office, so I can't
I
really
would-
say anything about that.
But it is it's a stereotype, but it's true that people do tend to get more conservative the older they get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it doesn't
100%.
always happen, obviously.
But
because
for
as
me-
you say with
but
your
for me-
examples.
But what does change is the definition of conservative, rather than the whole compass shifts,
Yeah.
rather than voters specifically.
But for me, there is a balance to be struck between people who are experienced and capable of performing, public service and policy making. There is a balance between that and between, getting people who have a stake in the region that they're governing, because the thing about it is, young people are going to have to live with the consequences of politics far longer than old people. It's a logical fact, and because of that, we need to strike a balance between getting experienced people and getting young people, and I think that balance lies younger than where it is currently. Wherever you look.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And then part of it probably has to do with education more than anything, and getting young people to understand why politics is important.
It's because by the time for most people Scott is you're not the
Yeah.
norm. Don't take that in the wrong way.
No.
I wish it was more young people like you, but there's
Fair
not.
enough.
Younger people don't tend to get more involved in politics until they get older.
Yeah.
Like me, I wasn't as into politics when I was your age. I was always had a general interest, but
Yeah.
it's got more so as I've got older. That's just normal because you realise how important politics is.
That's also
but-
something that's happening as a general
Can I-
social trend.
can
is
I
that
please-
Politics is permeating.
Could
It
I
is getting
interject,
cooler.
right? Could I
Not
interject?
even cooler. It's more like we'll come back to your point in a second,
Yeah.
Scott. It's more, I think, as a result of the sort of endless interconnected news cycle and social media sharing
Yeah.
of every single tiny little event that's going on in politics, and whatever side you're on, there's always this new thing to be outraged about, a new issue to be worried about, and it has permeated culture more than it had before. You would have never, not in 100 years would you go back the entire length of Glastonbury, right? Would you have ever heard people singing a politician's name until this year?
Social media has a massive part to play in that. So obviously social media has so many negativities to it, but it has, in my opinion, a lot more positive side to it, and that's one aspect of it. As you said, people will know things that maybe they might not generally be interested in, but they know something's trending, so they'll have an awareness of it, and with politics it'll bring more younger people in. So social media has been a very positive aspect to bringing younger people into politics.
It can also lead to a cult of personality surrounding
could I
people.
say, right?
Even surrounding people like Corbyn or Sanders, it can.
That's a problem, yeah.
Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, Trump and
yeah.
Rees-Mogg. Well, not look how popular he is online.
But
and I'm not
I know.
sure if that poll about him being favourite for leader is kind of a joke.
Accurate.
It shows you how much of a joke.
Even if it
people
was
see.
a joke, it's now snowballing towards
He doesn't
proper.
want, from what I can tell.
But
why.
see, right, what I would say...
Sorry, going back to your points.
I've been waiting to interject for ages, right? This always happens to me in my everyday life. I'm all, people carry on the conversation. I'm sitting there for 5 minutes being you know what I mean? So, but anyway, right, you were saying about me being a young person and interested in politics. I'm actually a bit scared about how singularly and obsessive I am about politics, because I'm scared I'm going to obsess over it for 6 more years, and I'm going to get to 25 and I'm just going to drop off and I'm just not going to care about it.
Burn
I burn out. That's it. That's my phobia. Because if I don't have politics in my life, what I have, hip hop, gangster rap.
To quote Bernie, never lose your sense of outrage.
Yeah,
I don't think it.
I don't think it will.
You know what? People think you get more calm as you get older, and in a way it is true, but you still have all that fire inside you. You just have a better way of managing it. But so you'll find you'll probably still have the fire. In fact, it may increase, but it'll just be a better way of dealing with it.
But in my personal circumstances, it's a number of things that have sort of sown the seeds, and it's just given me a really, really, really intense need. I would describe it as a need to change my environment, the environment that I've grown up in, that I've lived in, and that I exist in, and that need to change my environment. It comes from not feeling like I've been held in parity of esteem with others, and that their feeling comes. Well, the first thing I'd look to is school, because I'm not gonna lie to you, right? Like whenever I was 12, I figured out for myself, I didn't know that there was such a thing as being non-religious until I was looking up. No, I'm being deadly serious, right? Until I was 12, right? I didn't know you could be non-religious.
Of course you couldn't in our country. Even though it's a lot better than it used to be. Yeah. People don't know what atheist stands for. Yeah. A lot of people go, I'm an atheist, and they go, what's that? But seriously, in this day and age, you still don't know? So imagine what it used to be like.
But I would interject by saying that there was a girl I was chatting to ages ago, and whenever I was in second year, I was like, oh, I'm an atheist, and she says, what's an atheist? And I was like, somebody who doesn't believe in God. And she was like, oh. And then a couple of years later,
chatting this girl up.
No, I wasn't. Right?
Sure, I'm an atheist.
No. And then in fourth year, right?
Makes it sound exotic.
No. Then in fourth year, right? I actually overheard her saying, "Oh yeah, I'm an atheist." I was like, "You didn't know what the word atheist meant 2 years ago." You know what I mean? So and it was sort of a light bulb moment. Maybe I had sown the seeds, because the same thing happened to me. I didn't know what an atheist was. Then I found out what atheism was, and I was like, oh, I'll have some of that. You know what I mean? Because I knew it was available. And whenever I found out about it, that then prompted me to read up more about it, because I felt like an injustice had been dealt to me. You know what I mean? Because I've been told so much about Christianity and about Presbyterianism, but yet people seemed to be seeking to hide from me the fact that you could just not believe anything, and that this was a valid worldview, which it is. You know what I mean? And so I sought out a book about atheism. I decided I was going to read up, clue myself, get clued in on it, right? And as fate would have it, the book I chose, I went into Easton's, and the book I chose was The God Delusion, right? And it's funny enough, I sort of latched onto it really heavily, because it allowed me to sort of rationalize what I was feeling, the exclusion that I was feeling, the isolation I was feeling about being, plunged into a worldview that I was meant to inherit, but which I felt no attachment to, and it helped me rationalize that. Unfortunately, it made me rationalize that in a manner which made me hostile, I'll say, to religious people, and that's something that I had to sort of get over and deal with in the coming years. And because I wasn't very nice to religious people, and then even in later years, there was times where I was sort of implicitly not nice to religious people, and I didn't realize. And that's sort of a thing that I've maybe only in the last year or two completely unrooted. You know what I mean? But it has to be borne in mind that whenever you see edgy atheists on the internet, I think, obviously, I'm not saying that it's okay to be an edgy atheist that hates religious people on the internet, right? But what I'm saying is that if you see such a person, they are probably coming from a place where they were not given complete freedom to determine their own religious beliefs, where they were told that it would be better for them to be a certain religious belief other than the one they hold. And, to me, I believe that's just unconscionably wrong. And whenever I speak to people about this, I hear the same stories again and again. And the evangelical wings of the DUP, I find, are overwhelming. Whenever I engage with them, and even ordinary people, so many people are overwhelmingly eager to. They just say, "Oh, why make a fuss about it? Who cares? Atheists go on more about being atheists than Christian. Do about being Christian. That's what I keep hearing, and they don't understand that it's to do with fundamental issues of freedom of religion, freedom of belief rather, and equality. You know, they don't understand that that's what it is. They have never been in my shoes. They have never been in the shoes of somebody else who's been non-religious. They have only been in their own shoes. They have only been in the shoes of someone themselves who has never had to grapple with, you know, being told to believe a religious belief that wasn't theirs. They have never had that. And
just to interject, that's kind of what you're doing to them.
What? What do you? Hang on. No, I don't mean to be unreasonable. What do you mean?
When you're, you know, being like very not pushy about atheism, but
I'm not being
very enthusiastic about them. That's what it's going to feel like to them, is the very same sort of thing.
Well, obviously, I don't mind people calling me out in that, but like, I'm never pushy about atheism or being non-religious, because, you know, to me it's not a big deal. It's something that I thought about whenever I was 12 or 13 and just kind of decided on, and that was it. What I am pushy about is the rights and equality of non-religious people. That has to be absolute, and it isn't being recognised now. And the rights of children to determine their own religious beliefs, because that's not being recognised now. It's not being provided now, and, you know, they don't recognise it, you know, in the education system as a whole. Schools do still have some control over it. There's some things that they can do within the constraints of the law to include non-religious people better. They choose not to do it. You know, I know of many schools, you know, and you know, I could name schools. I can name schools which are failing young people. Which
shame.
I've got plans. If I don't get it resolved, you know, I do have one school in mind. If I don't get it resolved, they're being named, so they can deal with that.
Well, Boyd Slater and I talked quite a lot about this, about the sort of religious education in Northern Ireland, but we are quickly running out of time.
Are you buddies with Boyd Slater?
I had him on the podcast.
Oh, you had him. Oh, yeah, you did.
You know, it was good fun.
He's very opinionated.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You know,
makes for good listening.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we've been brushed aside. We haven't had our rights and equality respected. You know, that's to be expected. You know, respect our existence or expect resistance.
Fair enough. I'd say that the sort of atheist group didn't really exist especially not in Northern Ireland.
I do want to clarify. I do want to clarify before we kind of run out of time or wrap this up. I know I can have a lot of fervour whenever I'm talking about issues to do with me being non-religious and a secularist and so on, but it's not meant as disrespect to anybody regardless of their views. You know, it is a statement that that at the moment non-religious people don't enjoy equality under the law, and you know I think as a non-religious person I kind of do have the right to kind of get angry at that, but you know I would never try to impose on anybody else or get angry with anybody else. You know what I mean? Like I might have done years ago, but I think the word is matured. You know, but I don't. You know, like not even joking. Like you know, if anybody does feel like I'm imposing on them, you know, just chat to me. Don't sit there and stew and then just at some point randomly claim, oh, you only listen to your own views, you don't listen to anybody else's views, because like, you know, I can't improve and get better unless people, you know, tell me to my face and give me the chance to listen, you know what I mean? But I'm not trying to be disrespectful, you know what I mean? I just want me rights and equality, not that much to ask.
Exactly. So last question for you both.
Yep.
Do you see a future beyond our DUP Sinn Féin premiership?
Of course there's, because it wasn't, like, people may forget, but they're not actually haven't been a tag team for that long. It's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
No, but like, prior to that we had the UUP SDLP premiership.
That's it. But as I said before, the political landscape is changing. It's changing everywhere.
Yeah.
But especially here because of the history that we have with regards to religion being so high a factor in our society.
Yeah.
That is changing. But not only because Protestants and Catholics don't care so much about that anymore, or they're moving on, or they're more, the age of the internet is giving them more reason to understand that, you know, this isn't an avenue they want to go down, but also because, you know, like, there's so many people coming into Northern Ireland that weren't before. like it used to be a no-go area of Belfast, Northern Ireland. No, people then go, it's a war zone. People know that it's not the case anymore. So not only is like the demographics of Northern Ireland are changing, which therefore will change the political landscape. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, my answer to that would be it's more aspirational than political, but I think that there is truth in it. I have a number of sayings that I always use. And one of them is, with the right attitude, you can do anything. And I think that, whether or not we will see improvement in the situation here with regards to the prevalence of sectarian, regressive politics depends on the willingness of ordinary people to, stand up and get mobilised and say, no, we've had enough of this, and to work and figure it out and put a stop to it. And, if we work hard enough, if we keep at it, it is. I'm not going to lie to you. It is kind of daunting because I see. I see people.
Maybe if you hammer it hard enough, people will just vote progressive to shut you up.
No, but in all seriousness, I see people who are like 80 or 90 in the Alliance Party. I have a great deal of respect for them. You know what I mean? Like people who've been activists and working for decades. I have undying respect for that, but at the same time, it is daunting to think, what if I'm talking about this now, and then 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years down the line, things haven't changed much. It is daunting to think about, but the reason why I do what I do and try to make myself better as an activist and try to educate myself more and try to build up my profile and try to reach out to people. And the reason I do all that, and the reason I keep at it, the reason I'm still interested, and the reason that I'm still, I've been doing this a good few years now, and I'm only 19. The reason that I keep at it is because of the hope that maybe I won't end up like that.
It will change
in decades. You know what I mean?
If you look at it like the political
landscape, it's driven by that hope.
20 or 30 years ago, the thought of alliance candidates or alliance party having a party that wasn't deemed nationalist or unionist having so much say was unthinkable. Yeah. So we're not saying it's going to change in the next election or the election after that. Obviously, that would be amazing, and we should.
Wait, the one coming Christmas or the one in?
maybe the one just before that. But and it shouldn't mean that we shouldn't try and work towards trying to change every single one we get. You reach for the stars and you might not get all the way up there, but you might get something. Mm-hmm. We're looking for growth every election and every year, and I think we're seeing a wee bit. And that's what you have to grab onto. You can't go, oh my God, look at all the DUP and Sinn Féin and whatever. You just have to go, well, there's positives here and we have to take them. And it's a long reaching goal. Yeah. But we're setting some, hopefully, in motion that will get there.
I think if there's one hard bit of, evidence, or I don't know what you call it, to cling on to, it'll be that it's true that the DUP kind of bounced back recently, but until March 2016, the DUP had never lost. The DUP had never made a net loss of seats at an election. It was only March 2017, March of this year, that happened for the first time. Now, before that, you will be forgiven for thinking that it might just not have been possible. You know what I mean? But then it became possible, and even if you factor into account the seat reduction, they still, would have lost seats. You know what I mean?
See if that general election hadn't happened so soon after our assembly election, it wouldn't have been that sort of result for the DUP.
Right.
It was a reply to the nationalist surge that happened in the assembly election.
Oh no, the Demons might get in.
Yeah, so it was a bit of we better get the fucking finger out because they're coming. But see if that general election happened a couple of years later or anything, it wouldn't have been as good. But you got to expect a bit of a reply. It's going to happen, but come the next assembly elections, hopefully there won't be that soon. But if say they're in 4 years, it's 4 years. I'm losing track of when the next one is, but like 5 years. But like
it would have been it would be January 2022.
Yeah. So like
when
that comes, it's going to be a little bit. I think there's going to be a little bit more growth again. You know, obviously the picture will not be as perfect as we want it, but I think it'll be a little bit better.
We just need to keep chipping at it.
Yep.
We will crack it. We will crack it.
Well,
I might not crack it personally. Others might not crack it personally, but together we will crack it at some point. We don't know when, but we will crack it.
Excuse the very cheeky, silly, lame metaphor, but it's a mountain. You know, you're trying to climb it, and you know, as he said, it might not be us that does it, but hopefully we're laying the groundwork for someone to do it at some point.
Well, for the country's sake, I hope you succeed in chipping away at that DUP majority.
But you know, I think you do have to keep in mind, I really don't want us to come across as arrogant or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because I'm just realizing all the stuff that we've said. We're literally a Facebook page with 2,200 likes, and we're acting like we're going to change the country. You know what I mean,
Scott?
Like it'll be nice. It'll be nice. You know, it'll be nice. Like, but it's early days.
I'm already going in the buses for the victory parade next.
No, man, no. Like it's all aspirational.
I've got Limelight booked and everything.
You know,
O'Dore's going to DJ.
If we do like get something changed at some point somewhere along the line, no matter how small, that'd be nice. But I don't want people listening to this thinking we're stuck up. Jesus.
No, like we're under no illusions that we're nobody in the current landscape. But
so you have to.
Everyone has to start somewhere. You know,
everyone starts as a nobody.
That's it.
Ah, Jesus.
But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up on that cheery note.
We're not big-headed, we swear.
We're nobodies, but maybe not for
us. All right.
Thanks very much for listening. Later in the week, we have interviews with Harry Fone from the UK Libertarian Party. And next week, we're really excited to have evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein on the show. So be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss those. Until next time, thanks for listening.